So you've been thinking about joining the Disney College program. You've watched all the TikToks, you've seen those cute apartment tours on YouTube, and you're already daydreaming about clocking out of your shift and going to ride Space Mountain. It's gonna be so much fun, but before you commit to the months of Florida heat, those unpredictable schedules, and more magic than your feet can handle, we do unfortunately need to talk because the DCP is not for everyone and we might have some reasons that will surprise you.
Today, we're talking about the Disney College program. Specifically, the reasons it might not be the fairy tale you're imagining. The DCP can be an incredible opportunity, but it's also a huge commitment. And there are some realities that don't always make it into the brochures. So let's break down the things you need to know before you hit submit on that application.
We're gonna rip the Band-Aid off first thing and talk money because the pay is low. This is the Band-Aid we're ripping off. You're not gonna get paid a lot. We've talked about this, but we really feel it's very important to hone it in because it's gonna be low enough that it's gonna be like, you become best friends with Aldi kind of low. And let me just say, I'm an Aldi girl. I love Aldi, I shop there every week. There's going to be a cost of living shock for a lot of people, especially if you are not from Florida or Orlando. Groceries in Orlando can be pretty darn expensive, a lot more than a lot of students are even going to expect, I would say. That transportation is also gonna add up. Even if you have your own car, gas can add up really, really quickly, or even just paying for Ubers, trying to get around and doing things not on the Disney bus schedule. Because as much as you sit and think, I'm just gonna take the bus, there are times that you cannot take the bus. It is a whole system that will throw a wrench in your day. You're gonna Uber or you're gonna drive and you're gonna have to pay for both options. Those lovely days off in the parks, yeah, you're gonna buy stuff. You're gonna go to Universal. Epic just opened, you're gonna go. You're gonna go to Disney on your days off. Heck, you're even gonna go to the beach. You're gonna grab dinner with your friends, like normal human things, but you're gonna have to pay for it. Plus, Disney does take housing deductions. So if you're doing the DCP and you are staying in Disney's housing area called Flamingo Crossings, that paycheck that you get every other week is gonna be exciting, and then you're gonna realize they already took money from it, because that's how they pay your rent. You can't just pay it on your own, they take it straight from your wages. Plus, there are going to be unexpected expenses. Things like your uniform pieces that maybe you might lose or you might have to replace. You do have to pay for those lovely black shoes that you have to wear to work. You have to have certain socks that you have to wear to work that Disney does not supply. Gas, medical expenses. I got incredibly sick on my DCP and had to take off like a week of work and get tons of medicine. And it was a lot of money, and then I wasn't making money that whole week. Replacing things you forgot to pack. There's a lot of things that you're not planning on that you're gonna have to pay for, and it's all gonna add up really, really quickly. A lot of DCP participants, total honesty, end up dipping into their savings. They have their parents help pay for things. They even rely on family support from outside sources. It is a lot more money than you're probably anticipating. I even know people who saved up to go to the DCP, which is kind of ironic because it is a job at the end of the day. If you're hoping to save money or pay off loans or anything like that, the DCP is not for you. I actually had friends who had good jobs and then they came and did their DCP and they ended up losing money because they made less at their Disney job than they did at home, and they were not prepared for that. Now, all this to be said, it doesn't mean the DCP isn't worth it. It still is for a lot of people, but if you are going for purely financial aspects, I don't know that I would recommend that you go. Financially, it is not really that fairy tale that some people imagine, okay? And that's the most honest we can be.
Now, you can request your role, but you ultimately do not get to choose it, and there is a big difference. You might dream of being in attractions, but end up in custodial, quick service, or parking, and those roles can be physically demanding. Now, let me set the record straight. Every role will be physically demanding, some more than others. Attractions could mean long hours on your feet, continued guest interaction, lots of time angry guest interactions, because lightning lane or whatever. I mean, guests are always going to be mad about something. You might think attractions would be great, but then there are pros and cons to every role. For quick service, you're going to be out in the heat. Sometimes it's going to be very fast paced. It's going to be heavy lifting. Speaking from experience, you're going to have a rush every day. There's going to be a lunch rush. There's going to be a dinner rush, which can be a good or a bad thing. Sometimes it would make the days go by very, very quickly. Some days it wouldn't. Now let's talk about custodial. Custodial, you have so much independence with that role, but you're also cleaning, So, and then there's parking. You are outdoors all day long, rain or shine. Also, some roles require extensive training, and not everyone thrives in that environment. Many participants struggle with disappointment when they don't get the role that they hoped for. If you're not flexible, DCP can be a tough wake-up call. And also, you can get a role that you never even thought you would get. Like, for example, when I did my phone interview for the DCP, the entire phone call, we talked about lifeguarding because I had lifeguard experience from multiple years from a summer camp. That's what we talked about the entire time. The recruiter only asked me questions about lifeguarding. So I thought, I'm probably going to be a lifeguard. And then the very last question that the recruiter asked me, she said, "Now, are you open to any role, like quick service?" And I said, yes, because if you just want to do the DCP, you should say that you're interested in anything, because then you'll get in. So I said yes. And our whole entire interview was just like, didn't matter anymore because I got quick service as my role, which I loved. I loved it. I'm not bashing the quick service. But we did spend half an hour talking about lifeguarding, and then she asked me one question if I'm open to anything, and then that's what I got. So you might think you're going to get a certain role, but don't count on it 100%.
Another thing we love to harp on is that the schedules can be brutal, okay? Brutal. Team anxiety level scheduling, okay? You're gonna say goodbye to weekends, you're gonna say goodbye to holidays, you're gonna say goodbye to a good sleep schedule because none of that exists in Disney World. Disney is a 24/7 company. They are always running, and that means that you are too. You're gonna get to know those peak seasons and that chaos that those bring very well because you're gonna be working when the parks are at the busiest. They love those DCP kids because they're gonna show up. You're gonna get the worst times. You're gonna get the worst. If there is a Disney employee who is part of the union or they just have more seniority over you, they're gonna get the good schedule and you're gonna get the one that no one wants. And you know what? You're gonna love it. You're gonna have fun. But that means you're gonna be working when the parks are really the busiest, kind of those nights, weekends, holidays, anytime that's a quick turnaround. That's the most brutal too, is those quick turnarounds. So like you might close the park and then an hour, 2 hours after the park closes, that's when your schedule ends because you have to do the end of the night, the closing shift duties. So you might not leave till 1, 2 in the morning. And then you might be back at 10 a.m. the next day. I know personally I had lots of turnaround shifts, especially when I worked over at the boardwalk. I would close down the pizza stand, which did not close until midnight. So I would 9 times out of 10 have a shift until like midnight or 1. And then sometimes I would have an opening bakery shift, which started at 5 or 6. So like I would go home, take a nap, get dressed, go back. You also, because of these brutal schedules, are gonna kind of feel like you're missing out, okay? Families are gonna come visit, your friends are gonna be there, you're gonna have different holidays or things that you're gonna have to miss because of your scheduling. You might not get the time off that you want. You can ask for it, and sometimes it will get approved, and then sometimes it won't get approved, and you have to spend a holiday with thousands of strangers and not your family. And I did have that experience, and it was brutal. It was a very informative time in my life, I will say, as a young adult. You're also going to be exhausted. A lot of these shifts are going to be long hours in the heat. There's going to be constant walking or just standing on your feet. 9 times out of 10, you're not sitting down unless it's for your 15-minute break. And then those unpredictable hours can really kind of take a toll on your body. If you're not used to it or it's something brand new to you, it's a lot. It's maybe not what you anticipated. Another really important thing that those schedules can do to you is they can mentally exhaust you. You might think, Emma, I'm in Disney World. That's not possible. And yes, it is. It is so possible to become mentally exhausted, even in Disney World, because of tough scheduling and harsh environment factors that you've never had to experience before. The schedule makes it hard to kind of maintain friendships, maintain relationships, or even just focus on self-care. If you're only taking naps before your next shift, not even getting like full 8 hours of sleep, that can be really, really hard on you and hard on your body. It's just a lot to consider. If you are someone who needs intense structure or very consistent sleep patterns, this probably is not going to be the program for you. If you feel like, oh, I can do anything for 6 months, I can do anything for a year, then you can absolutely do this. But if you already know like, I'm not super fond if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, or I don't do well if I'm not on the schedule, I don't think that you should do this. to be totally honest. I think it'd be too much and you would begin to resent the company, which is something that happens for DCP participants who are unprepared.
Oh boy, the housing is not for everyone. Yeah, the DCP housing is convenient, but it's not exactly a luxury resort. However, I will say with all you new DCP kids, you are getting it better than what we have had in the past, okay? I'm from a while ago when we had the old apartments and they were much worse than what you have now. And I get it, yours are more expensive, which is crazy because mine were expensive way back then. So the fact that you have to pay more now, that's a different topic. I'm getting off topic. Anyways, it's still not exactly a luxury resort, but you are getting it pretty good now. Back to the point. Living with strangers. You might get lucky and find lifelong friends and talk to your DCP roommates all the time years later, or you might end up with roommates who don't clean, stay up late, and bring drama, which you also might have stricter rules than what you're used to back at home or back on your college campus. There's going to be noise restrictions, there's going to be guest policies, there's going to be inspections often. It's a lot, so it can be something that you're not used to, and maybe your roommates don't really love that and you don't get along, and lots of things can happen. There are also transportation limitations. So like if you don't have a car, you're relying on the Disney buses, and those buses run on their own schedule. And sometimes they catch fire in the middle of the road. Then you've got the problem of maintenance issues. So things are gonna break, things are gonna leak, things are gonna get moldy in the Florida humidity. So just dealing with that can be a lot. You also might encounter some privacy challenges. You're sharing a very small space with a lot of people, and that can be very overwhelming, especially, again, if you're used to having your own room, your own bathroom back at home, and then now you're in a room, a very small room that's like kind of made for one person, and you're sharing it with two other people in a bunk bed on the top of the bunk bed, and you can't even sit up without hitting your head on the wall. And then you've got a tiny little one sink where like you can't even put all your stuff on the counter, and then you've got one closet between the three of you, and you all have a merchandise problem, and you spend your money back in the parks buying more ears, more t-shirts, more spirit jerseys, more backpacks, and then like there's no room for anything. You know, that could happen. For some people, the housing situation is the hardest part of the entire program. And it's okay if that is the hardest part for you, and it's okay if it's not. Everyone is different. But yeah, speaking from my experience, I am a very easy, go with the flow kind of person. I'm a people pleaser, so like if you have an opinion on something, good for you. I'm not gonna counter with you at all because I'm gonna keep the peace. And the DCP was the first time in my life where I didn't keep the peace. And it was a lot, and I feel like I've told this story before, but I won't tell the whole thing because it's long and I honestly blocked it from my memory. Housing does have people in order to help with roommate conflicts and kind of de-escalate situations or provide advice on how to go about things, because sometimes these college kids are moving away from home for the first time. They've never really lived with people before, or you've lived with your best friends who you get along with and you've never had a problem with, and now you're living with strangers for the first time, living with people who are from other parts of the country who live differently than you do. And that can really be a struggle, and for some people it's too much and they decide to go home and leave the program early. And so it can be challenging, so just to be aware. But we did have some roommate issues, and during my college program there were 3 of us in one room, 2 in the other. Had some roommate conflicts. It got to be a lot to where the 2 other girls in the other room did have to move out, and then we got 2 new roommates in, and they were great, loved them. So it's really very common for that to happen a lot, and Disney Housing will try to take care of it as best as they can. Just knowing all of that, it could happen. It happens a lot.
Another thing to consider is you might get really burnt out. So working in the parks is very different than being in the parks. There's like a big difference. It's kind of like when your mom tells you to clean your room. You had already decided you wanted to clean your room and you're kind of excited about it, kind of something fun. And then your mom told you to clean your room and you were like, actually, I don't want to clean my room. I've never wanted to clean my room less ever in my life than right now because my mom told me to do it. That's kind of what it feels like going to Disney World after a while, when you wanted to go, you were super excited, but then someone else tells you you have to go. Then it feels a little different. One thing that's also interesting is because you're working in the parks and it does feel different, you might get to see how that magic gets made. And you also might get to see how that changes how you feel about the magic, which is bittersweet. Hearing the same music on loop for 8 hours might make you hate that music. The music that you previously loved and you would cry when you heard it because it meant you were in Disney World. You hate that music now. You don't want to hear it again. And it's gonna be months after your DCP before you can hear that music and feel like nice feelings about it, because you hear it constantly. It's also interesting because as a cast member, a lot of times you're gonna be seeing families and people at their most stressed, their most tired, their most frustrated, and you're gonna have to handle that, which can be draining for yourself. And like, you feel bad for them. You don't want them to feel that way, but all of a sudden you're having to handle that, and that's also very like frustrating and can lead to burnout for you. Some participants actually leave the program feeling less enchanted, if you will, than when they arrived. I had a roommate tell me that every day she went into work, it felt like they were chipping the magic away for her, because sometimes it's just not fun to see behind the curtain for everybody, and that's okay. If Disney is truly your happy place, like your one escape in the world, you really should think carefully about if you want it to be altered. If you are willing to know what it takes to make that magic, or if you like the magic because it's magical. If you want it to stay completely magical and you don't want to like ruin or taint it, you might want to think twice about the DCP.
Now, some applicants think the DCP is basically a long Disney trip with a little work sprinkled in here and there. No, that is absolutely false. It's a full-time job. You're working 30 to 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It is a full-time job. You get limited park time, and even when you do get into the parks, you might be too tired to even go and enjoy them. You will have blockout dates. There will be some days where you can't even get into the parks even if you wanted to. Okay, this is not a vacation whatsoever. You are there to work. Okay, you're working in the coolest, most magical place on earth, but you're there to work. And they're gonna work you like a dog, okay? Because you are bottom of the totem pole. DCP at the very bottom. You're gonna get the worst shifts. You're gonna work the most. You're gonna work not the most fun jobs either. That's why a lot of people don't love the DCP. I loved it. I had a fantastic time. And if you are at all interested, I think you should do it. But just going into the experience knowing things like this will help set realistic expectations. You will have no energy. After a long shift, working 12, 15 plus hours, the last thing you want to do is go back into the parks where you work and stand in another line. Why on earth would you do that? So trust me when I say it's not all churros and fireworks. Sometimes it's just work.
Guest behavior also can be a lot. Guest behavior is so interesting. You're gonna deal with those frustrated guests, you're gonna deal with confused guests, angry guests, guests who think that you personally closed down the ride of the Resistance.
Because you're ruining their vacation.
And yeah, people are gonna say that to you. The DCP requires a lot of emotional labor. You're expected to stay positive, you're expected to stay really helpful and happy and excited, even when the guests are not any of those things. The heat plus the crowds is just total chaos, especially in the summertime. Florida heat makes people insane. It makes me insane. I can be having the best day I've ever had in my whole life, and then I walk out into the Florida heat and I'm the nastiest person you've ever met. I am mean, and that is just the truth. Florida heat is a magic in itself, but it's like a dark magic. And then you add crowds to that, and it just is like a storm. It's a perfect storm for the angriest people you've ever met in your life. There's gonna be misplaced blame everywhere. Guests are gonna hold you personally accountable for whatever problem they are experiencing right then and there. From lost children to medical emergencies to ride closures, they're gonna blame you. And it kind of sounds silly, but it is true. That is exactly what happens. And those lost children and those medical emergencies, things like that, that's a lot of safety concerns that you're also gonna have to deal with, things that you maybe have never had to handle before. There are going to be times when you are the closest person who can help. And that can be very stressful and scary, not just for the person involved, but for you as well if you've maybe never been in this situation. If you are not comfortable with constant guest interaction, I don't know that this is the program for you. You either have to you have to become comfortable with it. You have to get comfortable with constant interactions, good and bad. And if you think that you can't do that, then I wouldn't do the DCP. If you are not prepared to interact with just thousands of people a day, I think that maybe this is not for you. Even if you are not a front of house person or you're working backstage, you still are going to interact with so many cast members, most of which you do not know. So if you are someone who really values their solitude and maybe does not want to interact with thousands of people a day, wouldn't do the DCP. I just don't think that it's for you.
Now, there are a lot of people who start their career at the Disney company with the DCP, hoping it'll lead to a full-time role, hoping it'll lead to some other kind of professional internship or part-time or anything like that. And while that can happen, career growth is possible, it's not guaranteed. And that's where a lot of people start to think wrong. Disney doesn't always have full-time roles available or open internships or insert the blank there. And thousands of DCP participants want the same opportunities. Okay, I promise when you see a job posted online for Disney, thousands of people have applied for it. It is very competitive. It is very hard to grow in the company. Not impossible, but very hard. And some roles have more advancement potential than others. There might be more job openings for higher up in parking than quick service. Like, it all depends on what roles they already have fulfilled, where people are moving within the company. You'll see a lot of times people will move internally. So maybe a leader at a quick service will move to attractions and, then people move up that way. But it all depends on chance, honestly, and what is going on in the company where they need more people. And of course, there will be post-program uncertainty. Many DCP participants finish the program unsure of what's next. That was what happened to me. The DCP you can do during college or you can do it after you graduate. And that's what I did. I graduated college in May and then moved down to Disney World the next month in June. So I didn't have to go back to school when I was done. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had to figure out what my full-time job was going to be at that point. So it depends. A lot of kids will do the DCP, then stay down in Florida and never go back home. That's what a lot of them do. You might not know what you want to do afterwards, and that's okay too. Trust me, I've been there. You'll figure it out. The DCP is a great experience, but it's not a guaranteed career path.
Another thing that a lot of people don't consider is the homesickness aspect of the DCP. The homesickness is so real for a lot of people. This is the first time ever they've been away from their parents, or it's the first time they've ever left the state that they lived in. It's a big deal. And maybe you're in college, but like you're only an hour away from your family. And then suddenly now you're a flight away from your family, which is not something that you mentally prepared for. Being far away from your family and friends can leave a really big emotional toll on you. Plus, you have that crazy schedule that we already talked about, so you don't really have a lot of time to get on the phone with them or keep up with them. That is gonna happen, and it's not always gonna be that terrible, but especially in the beginning, it is gonna feel that bad. Even surrounded by people, you can feel totally isolated, stressed, exhausted, and then like all of that plus homesickness just can really take a big mental toll on you that you probably didn't really anticipate because you were so excited. You were just thrilled to get there, and then you got there and you realized you were alone. It's okay if you aren't ready for that. A lot of people aren't. And what's really important to remember is if you do it and you still feel that way, a lot of the kids around you feel that way too. It's honestly making me really sad to think about it. They're also homesick. I know and can speak from like total experience. My first night, my mom took me to Florida and she dropped me off, and this is making me so sad. I don't know why. She dropped me off and I remembered I had great roommates. There was a room of 6, and so we had 2 bedrooms, 3 in each. And I had 5 other girls in this house with me, and they were so nice, and everyone went to dinner together, and like we did things that trying to get to know each other. And then at the end of the night, we all laid down to go to sleep, and I just cried my eyes out. I was so sad that my mom wasn't there anymore. So like, it's totally normal, but the homesickness is really real, and it takes a lot of people out, especially when you start adding all of those other layers, and then maybe you miss that first holiday, and it just can feel like too much. And that's okay. If you are not prepared to feel those like really complex, big feelings, maybe wait a year. or maybe just go to Disney for vacation with your friends and family. It's okay if you feel that way. A lot of people do.
Now, I know we've talked about how magical the DCP can be in the past, and this video is a little bit on the opposite side of the spectrum for that. So with this last point, I just want to say the DCP is amazing for some people and absolutely not the right fit for others. It is a high environment. The parks are loud, crowded, and constantly moving. Flexibility is required. Schedules will change, your role might change, expectations will change. You will need emotional resilience. You need patience, you need positivity, and adaptability. If you know you don't thrive in chaotic environments, that's really important to acknowledge and just accept that. And at the end of the day, it's okay. The DCP is not a one-size-fits-all experience. And you also might be sitting there thinking, wow, this sounds terrible. I don't think I can do that. I will say, challenge yourself, because that's how I felt at the beginning of my DCP, and the DCP changed me. It altered the brain chemistry in my body for the better, and I am a different person because of it. I am stronger, I am more confrontational, I am more confident in myself. So while it does sound like sometimes not the most fun experience, it is really great in just life experience. You're gonna meet a lot of new people, you're gonna make new friends, you're gonna have fun experiences. Yeah, you might not get paid a lot, but for most people who do this DCP, that's not the point. We're only saying all of these things so that you can have the right expectation about what to expect from the program. So if you know all of this going into it, you'll be fine. You will be prepared and you will have a blast. Yes, there are reasons that the Disney College program might not be the dream experience that you're picturing and that you've thought of since you first found out it existed. But here's the thing, for the right person, it can still be life-changing. The key is going in with your eyes open and knowing exactly what you're signing up for. So hopefully this video helps with that.
There you have it, the DCP. It lives in our hearts. It's so much fun, but it might not always be right for everybody. If you guys made it this far in the video, be sure to drop this secret code. And if you want, you should go ahead and like and subscribe, because we do tips, tricks, info, games about Disney World and beyond almost every single day of the week. Why? Because we're very serious about our fun. Bye.